because this main event is as good as any fight we're going to see this weekend. And it's former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz in his first return to the octagon since losing his title to the ageless wonder Glover Teixeira. But Luke, it ain't a soft underbelly matchup here to get well with. It's Aleksandar frickin' Rakic, who is a minus 195 betting favorite to the plus 165 Jan Blachowicz. Luke, straight up for this UFC main event from the Apex this Saturday. Do you agree with the betting odds?
I think I do. And as you indicated, I'll read them one more time. Well, we have our friends at Caesars, I believe, plus 165 for the former champion Blachowicz, minus 195 for Rakic. I've been thinking about this fight a lot, and I read Richard Mann's analysis out of Fight Metric as well. And in looking at this, I would favor Rakic, younger, appears to be in excellent condition, and has shown an ability, although it cost him a little bit against Oezdemir, where his offense can be a little bit limited, but his wrestling can be something he can lean on, right, as a reliable way to win rounds, and then and do that in succession to win fights. Like, I can rely on my wrestling for large portions of fights against better guys. I will say, though, that like what the data shows on Rakic is that against lesser opposition, where he really offensively opens up, he's quite a dynamic force. I mean, I think that is pretty clear. You know, the tape shows you that, and the data really supports it. But the data also shows BC, and this was kind of interesting, against better opposition, he still does quite well. Again, the Oezdemir fight notwithstanding, but in general, his record's quite good. But his offense falls off a cliff. For example, his positive striking differential gets cut by 50% when you go to sort of the upper end of that division. So the question here is, one, can he wrestle a guy like Blachowicz, who had some problems, by the way, against Glover Teixeira with this, although Glover Teixeira had the threat of the striking in a certain way too. But the point I want to make is, is that going to be a thing? And then if he does get it down, to what extent is he even going to open up with ground and pound, which could make the fight difficult later? So really, this is a question of not Rakic's baseline ability. Can he get the takedown? He probably can. He could probably get it pretty consistently. But the question is, what can he do with it? And more broadly, can he show a level of offense that has been somewhat more reserved against the elite here in this former champion case in a main event to really kind of audition potentially for a title shot? I guess we think Ankalaev is going to get it, but Rakic cannot be far behind.
No, he can't. I mean, look, this run that you mentioned with just that split decision loss to Oezdemir since entering the UFC, it's been flawless. The question that we laid out in Wednesday's storylines is, has it been exciting enough to deserve the type of rewards you get from beating the type of names he has? Now, look, you can keep winning boring. You'll get there eventually to a title shot. Can Rakic cut the line with a win here? Now, both guys this week said they feel this is a number one contenders fight, more or less, without that tag being added to it. You don't have to look too much further up and down the rankings to see they may end up having a point here, as we are just a few weeks out, of course, in June from Glover Teixeira defending against Yuri Prochazka, who's number 2. But Jan Blachowicz comes in at rank number 1, which is the UFC's preference typically when a champion loses or a top contender loses. They just give him that number 1 status for their next fight. But of course, you then have Rakic at number 3. So I believe in the stakes. But do you believe in what Jan Blachowicz is saying this week, Luke? With respect to his opponent, he says, look, I'm 10 years older. I've been in this game a long time. There's nothing Aleksandar Rakic is going to bring or show that I haven't seen before, that I can't be prepared for. Again, he did say that with respect, so this isn't, me trying to catch him in a buzz headline. But would you agree with that? Does it come down to the fact that Rakic can lull you to sleep with his fundamentals and almost simple game, but you also have to stop it?
I mean, I get what he is saying, and I generally agree. What is Rakic going to show in terms of skills that he hasn't seen before? It's hard to really pinpoint that, to be quite candid. I mean, you could say maybe he's got a certain unique combination of things from other opponents in his own way, and in that sense he hasn't seen that particular combination before. But I would say Blachowicz in that sense is correct. But BC, wouldn't you really agree that that's sort of beside the point? It's like, oh, I've seen this before. Yeah, and then the last time you saw it, it worked on you. Like whether or not you have experience with it is not really the question. I mean, it's valuable, it's important, and it should be asked. The question is, when you did see it before, how successful against it was it? And I got to say, Rakic's offensive wrestling, and again, that's going to have to be set up with the strikes and everything else. But, dude, it's probably going to work on some level. Enough to win, I don't know. Enough to take rounds, I don't know. Again, there are these bigger questions. But, I just want to point out, while I appreciate the former champ's breadth of and frankly depth of experience on this, and I do take it seriously and I do think it matters significantly less than what his historical record is against some of these things. And in his last fight, Glover Teixeira was able to show an ability to take real and significant advantage of him on the ground. And I know he beat Corey Anderson in the rematch, but look what Corey Anderson did to him the first time. Granted, it's a different Blachowicz. I'm not saying it's the same guy. But while I think that he has really minimized some of his weaknesses by virtue of some of these experiences that he's had, BC, he has not eliminated them. They are not gone. These are not relics of a former self. They're quite present, especially against someone as talented and as athletic and as ready to go and in his prime as Aleksandar Rakic. I think that's the way I would thread that needle.
Luke, I'm going to make a case to you that unfortunately this fight's going to blow. They both can have technical, cautious styles. While Blachowicz can be exciting when you cross that line and make him be, he also, watch the Jacare Silva 5-round fight, can be very systematic and careful when the action isn't necessarily pressed on the striking end. Rakic, the one critique we have against him, is with the lead, he can be too slow and technical. This is scheduled for 5 rounds. Rakic has never fought a fight scheduled for 5 rounds. 2 fights ago, he did fight Anthony Smith in a main event, but that was a 3-round one given the circumstances. If this guy's coming in here looking to spread his cardio out a bit, and if Jan comes in here with the attitude of, okay, you're going to have to come to me to make this fight, they could be waiting around for a while, Luke, with no one coming.
I don't think your concern is at all misplaced, dude. There's a lot of ways that Rakic maybe leg kicks or, pumps a jab or something in Blachowicz's face and then gets the hell out of the way and just kind of pot shots his way. I tend to think, though, BC, that the pot-shotting battle would favor Blachowicz over time. Remember what he did to Izzy? He was really good about not biting on... He did bite on certain feints, but not enough to really cost him. He did check some of the leg kicks, which was, I think, really set Izzy back a little bit and forced him into different ranges. So what I think is that eventually, I do believe Rakic is going to be tempted by the takedown, but that could, be not very fruitful. It could take a while against the fence. Or what you saw, and they're showing the pictures here, or what you could get is the Smith fight all over again, BC, where he gets the takedown but then can't do really any ground and pound with it hardly at all. That's actually a real scenario. His ground and pound numbers, they're respectable, but again, against better opposition, I think they're just not what they are in other cases. So I'm with you. I'm less concerned it will be just 2 guys circling. Because if there's just 2 guys circling, that means that Rakic couldn't get the takedown. And I think Blachowicz will actually pot shot him a little bit better. Wouldn't be a great fight, but wouldn't be a disaster. Could be also, you're going to get a scenario where Rakic gets the takedown, but then just really is in these positional control battles that don't result in any ground and pound of any kind of meaningful sense. And we're back to where we were with Esparza and Rose. Not much offense, and you're kind of trying to decide what's what.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm hoping for the best. No shortage of stakes. If somebody lands big, it could open up the offense. So, Luke, let's put the boring chess match that was Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza aside and not throw that funk on this one. If things start to heat up and it stays on the feet, who has the advantage here?
Blachowicz. Probably. I mean, the funny part is I like what Rakic does on the feet, and I actually find him to be significantly faster, more explosive. Obviously, Jan Blachowicz has the legendary Polish power, so I'd give him that edge. But, Rakic has shown a real capacity for, what do I want to say? Not fast-paced kickboxing, but he can cover distance with big, powerful strikes in short order. I mean, I think that's really been a hallmark of his game when he's let his hands and feet go. I'm just not a believer he's going to do that because you don't want to walk into a trap that Blachowicz is setting. He's an effective counter striker. In fact, he invites it. And so I think what he's going to do is to try to invite that, and instead Rakic is going to make it a takedown fight. I'm going to lead towards Rakic on this one a little bit, BC. I'm not saying that one loss to Glover Teixeira foretells the end of his career. I mean, I'm not suggesting that, but I just feel like given the vulnerability, given how dangerous he is on the feet, given how much I think Rakic is going to respect that, and not that in any way Blachowicz has terrible takedown defense. I don't think that's true either, but I don't know if it's sturdy enough at least to withstand the onslaught that I think Rakic is going to offer him. I like Rakic to win a relatively ho-hum one here tomorrow night.
Well, I think the hope here, I mean, it doesn't matter who wins in the end, but the hope here is that it's exciting. And if it is Rakic that wins, Luke, it's similar to the Canelo Bivol fight in a way where for me to pick Bivol to win, I had to bank on the idea that he can be the type of offensive fighter that he typically isn't, but maybe can be in the moment. Now, obviously, if you're a technical counter striker, you can look offensively amazing when someone's coming at you and making you do that. But short of that, I'm wondering if Rakic just, he's had some fights where he's been a little bit safe, but he's got the win. He's got to this point. Again, it kind of mirrors when Jan pulled out that stinker against Jacare Souza just to survive in advance. But when given the moment, granted against a different style in Dom Reyes, boy, did Blachowicz rise to the occasion. How much would you be surprised if this was the fight where Aleksandar Rakic rises to that occasion, where we see, intention, combinations, a pace, where he not only can get the biggest win of his career here, which could arguably put him next in line for a title shot, but where we may come out of this weekend going, okay, I love me some Glover versus Yuri. Can't wait to see who's the champion. But we may have the new champion right here. How shocked would you be if this was a reversal of personality here and we see Rakic become the killer that sometimes he shows he has the potential to be?
A couple things to keep in mind. The due to late changes in some of how his fights have gone, he actually hasn't been in a 5-round contest yet. Or at least, I don't think none of his fights have gone to the 5th round. The Smith fight, remember, I think that was put together sort of semi last minute or moved last minute, and they ended up making a 3-round contest.
Luke, are you going to forget that I said that about 2.5 minutes ago, or no?
I am going to forget that you said that. Well, I'm just sort of pointing it out. Okay, to answer the question in this particular way, what does that do to his game planning late? Like, is it more of the same, or is there a noticeable change as we move into that phase of the game? But BC, you're asking, the question was, how surprised would I be if it was a little bit more dynamic and then Rakic really was, really opening up on the feet? Okay, so I've made the argument that the style itself doesn't necessarily give me confidence about that, the style matchups. But what I would say is this is supposed to be the time, I think, in Rakic's development where that kind of thing should be presenting itself. And maybe not this fight against this opponent. Again, it's not like, okay, now's the moment, now or never. We can clearly say this is the dividing line. It's hard to know that exactly, but I just do mean, BC, if you look at since losing to Oezdemir in 2019 and beating Smith and beating Santos, now taking on Blachowicz, you've gone to people who contended for the title to now someone who held it. This is the moment, and he's not holding it anymore, obviously, but this is the moment to begin to show what you're made of. Yes, and of course, getting the W is the most important, and I think even if he doesn't rise to some offensive dynamism, he will probably still get the win. But I would say for all of the style considerations that are worth, I think, taken seriously, it is also true that if Rakic is to really get the best out of himself and become the most that he can be, this is that stage of development where you can handle more difficult pressures and still maintain greater offensive dynamism. Are we just going to retreat to what we were because it's more defensively sound because the offense isn't really there? You create risks by opening up. Like, solving for that as you develop is the critical consideration here. So what I would say is I don't think it's the likeliest possibility, BC, but it shouldn't be all that surprising because I'm kind of waiting for him to make that turn anyway.
Well, you have to wonder, Luke, if he can establish the threat of the takedown early in this fight, which is something you mentioned earlier, maybe that brings down Jan's high guard. Maybe that turns into Jan looking to press a little bit more as we enter the second half of this fight, which could open up those same opportunities for Rakic. But either way, Aleksandar is going to have to step up and be the great in this moment. And Luke, I agree with you. I think he will. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be technical. I think it'll be slow at times. But when it heats up, I think that's where Rakic is going to separate himself.